Hollywood is in chaos. Jimmy Kimmel pulled off the air, Conan O'Brien warning of censorship, and Marvel stars threatening boycotts. But here's the real story. While celebrities cry about late-night comedy and national tragedy, the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk is being ignored.
Why?
Because this was never about free speech or morality.
It's about power.
And today, I'm exposing exactly how Hollywood's empire is collapsing before our eyes. Hollywood is in an uproar, pointing fingers at Disney CEO Bob Iger and his team for pausing Jimmy Kimmel Live. Even Conan O'Brien weighed in, saying it should alarm everyone, though he remained silent on a far more devastating national tragedy gripping the country right now. Meanwhile, Marvel's own Hulk stars, Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany, are hinting at boycotts against Disney. But here's the truth. This isn't about morality, free speech, or even ethics. What we're watching is the Hollywood machine itself faltering, an empire on the brink of losing its grip on power. And today, I'm going to break down exactly how. On this show, we deal in facts. My team works hard to sift through reliable sources before I ever crack a joke, and that's because truth still matters. So, welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we stay on the sunny side of life. Yet I can't ignore the stark difference in public reaction right now. Compare how people are responding to the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk with what happened years ago, when a man with a criminal record and drugs in his system died after a police encounter, someone who had even threatened a pregnant woman with a weapon. The contrast in reactions is too glaring to overlook. When I look at the memorial for Charlie Kirk, I don't see boarded-up windows or businesses hiding behind plywood. What I see is prayer. I see people singing, praising, showing compassion, and standing together in unity. And honestly, I'd encourage you to choose that side, the side of goodness, peace, and community. Because I remember what it was like back in 2000, walking through city centers where shops had been looted, entire blocks burned, and destruction left behind. That chaos stands in sharp contrast to what we're witnessing now. Do you notice the difference too? And then, there's Hollywood. Take Conan O'Brien, for example. I've always heard he's a decent person, treats his staff with respect. But today, the issue isn't about whether someone is nice or not. What's happening in Hollywood right now isn't really about morality, it's about power. O'Brien said the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel and the threat to silence other late-night hosts for criticizing the administration should alarm everyone, whether left, right, or center. He calls it wrong and claims anyone with a conscience should feel the same. But here's the problem. While he's outraged over comedians being silenced, a man was just brutally killed. Charlie Kirk was taken from us in the most brutal way, before his wife, his child, his fans, and the entire nation. It was a shocking act meant to silence, to crush free speech in full view of the world. And yet, Conan O'Brien said nothing. Conan, this is where you failed. You may be a kind person in your personal life, but when it came to this tragedy, you stayed silent. Instead of acknowledging Charlie Kirk's assassination, you chose to focus on a late-night show getting suspended, a show that's been hemorrhaging viewers for years. That's not the same level, my friend. Not even close. Would you raise your voice if someone on the right lost their platform? I doubt it. And that's the problem. Matthew Marston put it well when he broke down your logic. Your statement leaned on emotional appeals, claiming everyone, across the political spectrum, should be disturbed, while offering no evidence. You implied that anyone who disagreed simply had no conscience. That's not reasoning, that's dismissal. That's an ad hominem attack. And like so many in Hollywood, you made your statement, then vanished. No dialogue, no accountability. Just, here's my opinion, goodbye. Because deep down, you know your arguments can't withstand scrutiny. One question below the surface and the whole thing collapses. Hollywood needs to hear this clearly. People don't admire you anymore. Your mansions, your luxury, your status, they mean nothing to us now. No one aspires to be you, to live in your hills, or to follow your empty influence. Nobody's dreaming of Beverly Hills anymore. People don't look up to Hollywood stars the way they once did. And when celebrities act this way, it's just plain ugly. Ordinary folks are far happier aspiring to something real, something better than the shallow image Hollywood projects. Conan, that's why it hurts to see you miss the mark here. You could have been better. Instead, you let people down. Yes, defend your friend Jimmy if you want to. That's your right. But what you can't do is stay silent when a political figure is brutally murdered simply for wanting open dialogue. And then, the only time you decide to speak out is when a low-rated late-night show gets suspended? That's upside down. That's strange. And since we're talking about Jimmy Kimmel, let's not forget his own words about Roseanne back in 2018. Roseanne was fired after a crude, offensive tweet. She apologized, though clumsily, but Hollywood didn't give her a pause, or a suspension, or a chance at redemption. They ended her career overnight. Nearly a decade later, she still hasn't been welcomed back. Jimmy himself said at the time, ABC acted quickly and did the right thing. He claimed it wasn't censorship, it was accountability. Actions have consequences, he argued. Networks don't have to pay you to say offensive things. That was his defense. So here's the irony, Roseanne was banished instantly. But now, when it comes to protecting his own circle, suddenly the rules change. Suddenly it's about fairness, about speech, about being disturbed. Remember when Tucker Carlson was let go from Fox? He hosted the biggest show on cable, massive ratings, far bigger than anything Jimmy Kimmel ever pulled. I'm not here to debate Tucker right now. Some of you like him, some don't, and some are in between. That's not the point. The point is holding Jimmy accountable for his own words. Tucker was drawing millions, while Jimmy struggles to get 120,000 viewers in his demo. That's a number hundreds, maybe thousands, of YouTube creators surpass every single day. The only reason Jimmy even matters in this conversation is because Disney has propped him up for years, night after night, even as late-night TV collapsed around him. Without Disney's backing, Jimmy's cultural footprint is basically non-existent. Now think about how Jimmy reacted when Tucker was removed. He mocked it on air, joked about parting ways meaning fired, and laughed about Tucker heading to Moscow. For him, it was a delightful shock. No sympathy, no defense of free speech, no talk of accountability, just celebration. So if people are now celebrating Jimmy's own cancellation, or even his temporary suspension, should that really surprise anyone? Because unlike what Conan O'Brien wants you to believe, this isn't the administration, or some political plot, or even the orange man pulling strings.
This is the market speaking.
America, not Washington, cancelled Jimmy Kimmel. And that's exactly what Conan O'Brien doesn't seem to get, or maybe he does, but won't admit. This wasn't the orange man.
It wasn't the FCC. It wasn't even Disney.
In fact, Disney bent over backwards trying to keep Jimmy on the air, hoping an apology would smooth things over.
What really happened?
The affiliates, the local stations across the country, listened to their audiences. Everyday Americans called in and said, "Turn this off."
And why?
Because before Charlie Kirk was even laid to rest, before his family could mourn, Jimmy Kimmel went on air and falsely claimed his killer was a Charlie Kirk supporter.
He tied it to MAGA.
That was a lie, and everyone knows it.
And here's the irony.
Did PayPal freeze Jimmy's account? Did Chase or Bank of America cut him off? Did Twitter ban him? Did Facebook stop his ads?
Did Stripe shut him down?
Did the FBI investigate him?
Were mobs chasing him from his home?
Inez found law to silence him?
No, not one of those things.
Yet those are exactly the tactics people on the other side of the political aisle have been facing for nearly a decade. Systematic efforts to deplatform, demonetize, and erase them. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel's show simply gets paused, and Hollywood acts like it's the end of free speech. Sorry, but middle America isn't shedding tears for a late-night host who barely pulls 100,000 viewers in his demo. Not when they've endured years of being muzzled themselves. He's drawing only a sliver of the audience, roughly 1/120th of what some Fox shows pull, and we're supposed to shed tears for this guy?
Come on.
Even his Who Wants to Be a Millionaire stint is delivering only a fraction of what Regis once did. The man chose this path. He willingly sacrificed his career and the late-night genre on the altar of ugly politics. Take the Hollywood coverage. Shout out to Christian Toto. Megyn Kelly absolutely roasts Kimmel using his own words. And the receipts are brutal. Read the piece. It's worth it. Kelly argues that Kimmel should be held accountable, and she even hints this could open him up to legal trouble. To anyone paying attention, it reads plainly as partisan. Charlie Kirk was shot at a Kirk event. The obvious inference was that his politics motivated the attacker. Only those desperate to deny any ideological link would pretend otherwise. I and others who follow the reporting, the same outlets Kimmel's fact-checkers have access to, saw the same timeline and details. That's why I'm calling Kimmel's on-air claim a deliberate falsehood. By Tuesday, the picture got clearer. Statements from the victim's mother, the indictment and press conference laid out alleged motives tied to leftist ideas and identity issues, all information that was available and should have been considered before Kimmel made his assertion on Monday night. Remember, Kimmel has repeatedly said he relies on a fact-checking team and insists the show doesn't invent lies. Yet here we are. The clip speaks for itself. Kimmel himself once bragged that he's backed by a full team of researchers, sifting through facts and reputable sources before he cracks a joke. His own words, "The truth matters." Yet here he is, caught pushing a claim that turned out to be flat-out false.
So where did it come from? Look closer and the trail isn't hard to spot.
On Blue Sky, one far-left activist with a Substack, someone heavily followed in fringe progressive circles, floated the narrative early that the shooter was tied to the right. No evidence, no proof, nothing but speculation. That's the echo chamber Kimmel seems to be living in, and that's the poison he carried to late-night TV.
The result?
Indefensible. Indefensible for him, and indefensible for Disney. Ratings are already in free fall, worse than Colbert, and Colbert got cancelled.
The business case doesn't exist.
Which raises the real question. Why would Hollywood fight for him?
Why the calls for boycotts?
Why the threats to walk away from Disney and even Marvel over this? The answer is simple. Power.
That's the game.
Take the report from Peter Kiefer at The Hollywood Reporter. Bob Iger's wife, Willow Bay, had planned to host a fundraiser for the International Women's Media Foundation at their Brentwood home. But after Iger yanked Kimmel off the air, that event may need to relocate.
Why?
Because Kimmel refused to apologize. Instead, according to industry insiders, he doubled down, even vowing to go harder against Charlie Kirk supporters. That was the breaking point. The affiliate said no way and pulled the plug. Iger's hands were tied. And here's the kicker. There's no evidence Iger, his wife, or ABC boss Dana Walden actually disagree with Kimmel's politics. The clash wasn't about ideology. It was about damage control, business interests, and, once again, raw power.
And why?
One word: authenticity. People don't want plastic narratives anymore. They want real voices, unfiltered truth, and genuine conviction. That's why audiences are flocking to new media platforms like YouTube and X instead of legacy outlets.
But it's bigger than just YouTube stars. Ownership itself is shifting.
The Ellison family, one of the wealthiest in the world, bought CBS Paramount through Skydance. And unlike the entrenched Hollywood elite, the Ellisons aren't hard-left activists. They are centrists, maybe even leaning slightly right. That one move alone has the power to upend decades of ideological control.
Then look at Disney.
This year, they lost at the box office to Warner Brothers under David Zaslav, another centrist figure. Imagine if Warner Brothers and the Ellisons align. Suddenly, two major entertainment giants stand outside the old Hollywood bubble, and the monopoly collapses. Meanwhile, the cable news giants are faltering. CNN and MSNBC have been spun off from their parent companies, stripped of the corporate subsidies that allowed them to run with shrinking audiences and still survive. Without that lifeline, they can no longer coast on rhetoric aimed only at the far fringes.
The free ride is over.
Late-night TV is falling apart.
Even The View looks shaky.
The industry that once felt untouchable is watching its influence slip through its fingers. And the response? Pure desperation. That's why actors like Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany risk their Marvel careers to call for Disney boycotts.
It's not boldness, it's panic. They are doubling down because they have nothing else left.
America has turned. The walls they built to keep out dissenting voices have crumbled. Ordinary citizens have become the media themselves. And this new media doesn't just rival legacy media, it surpasses it. It's faster, freer, more authentic, and more trusted. The assassination of Charlie Kirk made the divide impossible to ignore. Compare the responses from 2020 to those in 2025.
The shift is undeniable.
One side doubled down on silence and distortion. The other side grew stronger, louder, and more united.
And for Hollywood, it's too late.
They can shout, boycott, and cling to their cocktail parties, but their monopoly on culture is over. Unless some anti-miracle hands them back control, their reign is finished. The new media has arrived. With it comes not just a new America, but the possibility of a renewed Western civilization. And we'll need it, because artificial intelligence is at the gate, and the future will demand our best selves. I'm not here to tell you to be a conservative, or even a classical liberal. I'm here to remind you of something deeper. Be good. That's what every great story has always been about. That's the essence of the hero's journey. That's the path forward. Let that sink in. And why has this shift happened? One word: authenticity. People are no longer satisfied with carefully packaged narratives from legacy outlets. They want unfiltered truth, genuine conviction, and voices that speak directly to them, not down to them. That's why the rise of new media has been so explosive. But it isn't just about platforms like YouTube and X. ownership of legacy media itself is changing. The Ellison family, one of the wealthiest families on the planet, recently bought CBS Paramount through Skydance. And unlike Hollywood's entrenched ideologues, the Ellisons aren't radical leftists. They are centrists, maybe even leaning slightly right. That single acquisition means one of the major networks now sits outside the old guard's ideological lock.
And look at Disney.
This year, they were defeated in office by Warner Brothers under a centrist executive who doesn't march in lockstep with the left either. Now imagine if Warner Brothers and the Ellisons align. For the first time in decades, two entertainment giants would stand apart from Hollywood's cultural monopoly. Meanwhile, YouTube has allowed new voices, both center and right, to thrive. Legacy news networks, however, are withering. CNN and MSNBC have been spun off from their parent companies, stripped of the subsidies that let them survive without ratings or relevance. No longer propped up, they can't coast on shrinking audiences while endlessly preaching to the fringes.
That era is finished.
As late-night television crumbles and even shows like The View look shaky, the industry is watching its power evaporate. And that's why we're seeing desperation. When Conan O'Brien or other Hollywood figures refuse to condemn the assassination of a free speech icon but still lash out over failing shows, it's not about morality.
It's about power.
For them, Hollywood isn't just an industry, it's their entire identity. Now that it's collapsing, their only move is to double down. That's why actors like Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany are willing to risk their Marvel careers, openly calling for boycotts of Disney. They don't have another strategy.
This is their last stand. But America has turned.
The public no longer aspires to their world or their vitriolic ways. The gates they built to keep out dissenting voices have been scaled. Thanks to the internet, and in no small part to Elon Musk, ordinary citizens have entered the arena.
They are the media now.
The new media isn't just a rival to the old, it's better, stronger, and more trusted. The assassination of Charlie Kirk made the contrast unavoidable. Compare the responses of 2020 to those of 2025, and the shift is undeniable.
The old system is collapsing. The new one is rising. Compare the responses. Decide which side you want to stand on.
For Hollywood, I'm afraid the choice no longer matters. It's too late. You can rally around Jimmy Kimmel or defend the old order, but the truth is simple. The new media has arrived, and it isn't going anywhere. Unless some miracle, or perhaps anti-miracle, restores your grip on power, your blockade against dissenting voices is gone.
Your era has ended.
The new media is here, and with it comes the hope of a new America, perhaps even a renewal of Western civilization itself. We're going to need that strength, because another challenge is already knocking: artificial intelligence. To meet it, we must become the best versions of ourselves. That doesn't mean clinging to labels like conservative or classical liberal. It means choosing, every day, to be good people. That's what every great story we've ever been told points us toward. The hero's journey is always about becoming better than you were before.
So, choose today.
Choose to walk away from the legacy media, which has revealed itself as nothing more than a machine obsessed with power, not truth.
Say goodbye to it.
And perhaps, someday, some company may rebuild it into something worth trusting again, but not before it takes this defeat, and it is a massive one.
And yet, amid all of this, someone else is winning. Charlie Kirk is winning.
His family has paid a heartbreaking price, an enormous sacrifice. But because of the way they have faced this evil, without vengeance, without destruction, the world is better for it. His supporters could have turned this moment into chaos, a call to arms, or an excuse for violence. Instead, what we have seen is prayer, unity, and resolve. That contrast is so powerful it terrifies his critics, which is why they attack so viciously before he has even been laid to rest. To everyone watching, let me say this as clearly as I can. You are, without question, the best audience anywhere on YouTube.
I don't just throw that line out casually.
Time and again, you've shown up, engaged with the content, and carried these conversations far beyond the screen in front of you. You bring energy, curiosity, and an openness that makes this more than a one-way broadcast.
You make this a community.
And for that, we appreciate you deeply. Truly, none of this would be possible without your support and presence. Now, if you want to keep this momentum going, I have a simple request. Do us a favor and click that like button. It may seem like a small gesture, just a quick tap of your finger, but it makes a massive difference. Every like signals to the platform that this conversation matters, that it's worth sharing with a broader audience. And when you share this video, you aren't just passing along content. You're spreading ideas, stories, and perspectives that have the power to shift conversations in living rooms, classrooms, and workplaces across the country. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe. That one step ensures you're always connected, always part of the next chapter of what we're building together. Subscribing isn't about a number on a channel. It's about declaring that you value the free exchange of ideas and want to be part of a growing movement of people who think for themselves. And to make sure you never miss a moment, click that notification bell. Think of it as your direct line to us, a reminder that whenever something new drops, you're among the first to know. We also want to hear from you.
Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Don't underestimate the power of your words. A thoughtful comment can spark a whole new conversation, open someone else's eyes, or even inspire the next video. We read them, we value them, and often they shape the direction of where we go next. This isn't just our channel, it's yours too. The comments section is where ideas are tested, refined, and shared, and it's where we see the true diversity of thought and experience that makes this space so vibrant. Until next time, let me say this from the heart. We count it an honor, a joy, and yes, even a responsibility to spend these moments with you. This isn't background noise or a filler in your day, it's time we share together, and we don't take that lightly. Every view, every interaction, every return visit reinforces the idea that something meaningful is happening here. And with so much noise out there, the fact that you choose to spend part of your day with us means more than words can fully express.
So here's the takeaway. Keep learning, keep growing,
and above all, keep having fun. Learning doesn't end when school does, and growth isn't reserved for moments of crisis. It's a daily choice.
And fun?
Fun is the fuel that keeps us coming back, that makes the hard truths easier to digest, and that reminds us why life, even in its struggles, is worth embracing. If you commit to those three things, to learning, to growing, and to enjoying the journey, you'll be ready for whatever comes next, whether it's in media, in technology, or in your own personal story. This community is proof that the best audiences don't just watch, they participate, they share, and they grow together. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for being you.
And thank you for making this space one of the most dynamic corners of the internet. Until we meet again, stay sharp, stay strong, and never lose sight of the joy in the journey.